got a question. Ask Tom on Home Show Radio.
This is Home Show Radio live on Facebook and YouTube. Your questions, Tom's answers. Now here's Tom Tynan and Charlie Mosier.
And here we go to begin Ask Tom Live here at Home Show Radio. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It'd be kind of cool to have an audience. Actually, it'd be boring. It's home improvements. So hang up now. Don't. It's boring home improvements. No, I've been doing it for 35 years. Obviously, it's not boring because so many people do it. Home improvements. I would like to know the percentage of people that have done a home improvement. I can't answer that question, but it would. Be
I can answer that question.
No, you can't.
I can, and we're going to do it in the news in a minute. But anyway.
Okay, well, I just struck a lucky chord there because I know we talked a little bit, but I had no idea that was part of it.
It is. All right. So
I guess maybe it is popular. We're going to find out in the news here in a second. But first, I got to tell you who I am. I'm Tom Tynan. I have been taking care of people's home improvement problems through answers on the radio for 34 years now, in the midst of my 34th year. Here mainly in the Houston area, across Texas too. But right now, as I get older, Houston is my home, and this is where we're concentrating all our radio efforts. Although with the internet today, you can listen anytime you want at homeshowradio.com. But I'm on live Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 12 on Saturday on Sports Radio 610. You can see right here behind me on my poster. And that's in Houston, Texas. And of course on Sunday, 8 to 11, same show, a little bit different time, but we do the same format. Basically talk to you about things you can do around your home. Now on Saturday, because I do homes inside and outside, but not the gardening part, doesn't mean I don't love to garden like everybody else. I'm one of those amateur gardeners that do it on the weekends. In fact, I was doing some planting today. But the fact of the matter is we have an expert, Danny Milliken, and all of his garden show pros on his show before me on Saturday from 7 to 9. So you have a whole package on the weekends. And you can listen. Charlie, you're going to help me with this. What website? Can they listen to Danny on both websites? Do they have to go to a different website for him? I'm not sure how that works.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'll show you this. I've got see where it says listen on the radio.com app? Yeah, the guys apparently Entercom decided they're going to change the name to Odyssey, so I've got to change that graphic. But you can listen. The easier way to listen is go to homeshowradio.com right here. Where is it? Right here. Go to this website right here, homeshowradio.com, and there's a great big green listen button there in the lower right-hand corner. You click that, you can listen anytime you want. In fact, we stream Tom's past 2 weeks of shows all week long, and then he does a show, and the old one gets bumped off, and they just stay on there. If you listen anytime you want, 24 hours a day, you get a little Tom Tynan Jones in the middle of the night. We'll scratch your itch.
Don't do that. But my question, Charlie, to you is, can they listen to Danny on the garden side on my website, or do they have to go somewhere else?
In fact, Tom, they can't. No, but
I don't know. Okay, I'm
but there's if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a link that takes you to homeshowgardenpros.com. If that's too many letters for you to remember, or you just go to homeshowgardenpros.com, and there's a similar green button right there.
Okay.
Zach, our web wizard. That's Zach 1 because we have 2 Zachs now, but Zach number 1 created it and made it super easy to listen to the show anytime your heart desires. So.
There you go.
But what we do here on Thursdays is we answer the questions you send us at homeshowradio.com under the Ask Tom tab. But we're here live. I should bring in the newspaper, like, one of those proof of life things that we really are alive. But you can put your questions in the comment section down underneath, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be able to answer them for you here on the show. So that's how that works. But before we get to that, Tom, it's time to go around the globe and up your block with what's news in home improvements. There you go.
Yay.
This week,
Okay.
to sell or to stay, what is the better way for you? Well, according to the way house prices are rising, the chances of you being able to find a deal on a home are pretty stout. That black line that's going up there was from 2002 through 2007, and the second one is from 2016, the blue one, to 2021. You see any scary similarities there to when we had the mortgage crisis? Fact is, though, that the experts say the chances of that happening right now are pretty remote because credit is far tighter now than it was back then.
true.
And the other thing that's driving problems right now is the supply and demand. Is that, as you can see, the supply is so far down right now that there are literally, I think we read a couple weeks ago, there are more realtors than there are listings in America today. And
I believe that for sure.
yeah, so that's for sure making it easier to stay put, which segues right into a survey that DeWalt commissioned
There you go.
that found out that 52% of homeowners favor home improvement over moving, which is job security for us. But we're not talking about
not like
changing
that.
light bulbs and things like that. They said in this survey, 64% of Americans are budgeting $10,000 or more, while 28% are planning to spend over $30,000 on home improvement projects in the coming year. So, Tom, you ready to play a game? We're going to play Home Improvement Feud here. There are 5 top projects that DeWalt ranked as the top 5 that homeowners are going to do. Would you care to guess here and see if you can win the Home Improvement Feud?
I don't have one of those buttons.
No, afraid not.
Oh, so I can't play. No, that's fine. It's going to be one of 2 things that I would think of. And my first one I'm going to say, because it's a personal space, it's where you want to play, and that's bathrooms. You do want to play there.
Number 1 answer, Tom. Okay, you're supposed to save that one till last, all right? Tom obviously wasn't.
Well, you said it was number 1.
Right, but I mean, where's the drama now? Okay, so what are the other 5?
Well, those are the ones I don't know. You ruined it. You
How
told
did
me
I
the first
ruin
one,
it?
Bond.
Man,
Because we should have taped this. Now we need that newspaper and tape it beforehand saying, Charlie told me the answer to number 1. He said, but I have to come up with the other 4. And then he
Okay.
wanted me to be creative, and I'm not an actor. When I know something, it just blurts out. I don't have any way to stop it.
This is why Tom
Have you
doesn't
noticed
do
that,
improv boys
Charlie,
and girls.
working
All
with me
right.
for 25 years?
So, what do you suppose if bathroom's number 1? What do you suppose number 2 is?
Came before we ever talked about this, kitchens.
Yeah,
You bet.
absolutely. Kitchens.
Yeah.
And then any other guesses on the other 3?
Now, these are going to be tough. So I am going to go out on a limb because I think there's 3. I might get 2 out of 3 on these last. But I want to say home office.
Nope.
Okay, do you want me to keep guessing? What's that?
Okay.
Okay,
That's like, yeah,
well,
the-
you have to have a button for that.
Okay.
No, I'm trying.
Okay.
Kitchens and bathroom is easy. It's all the other ones. There's so many things you could do.
Okay. What's next to the bathroom?
A master suite.
Bedroom remodels. You bet. Number 4.
Bedroom models. Okay, that
Yeah,
would have been
and then
one of
other-
the top 5.
And then the other
two
2 are outside. They say landscaping is number 5.
Well,
and
where's
number
number
3, surprised me, porch, patio, and deck makeovers.
Well, that's kind of like outside. Okay.
I saw
can
this
see
list. I saw this list yesterday, and I realized what's happened in my house over the last year, and I realized that
You've
Sandy-
actually done some of these. I'm looking at them.
all
here.
5. So
And I've done 1, 2. I've done 2. The bathroom and the kitchens. Landscaping, I'm having to do
Yeah.
because of the freeze. That wasn't something I wanted
And
to
Gary, by the way, wrote in here. He says bathrooms, kitchens, family room, entertainment room, garages. So he scored about as well
See,
as you did.
do. Well,
See?
now, me and Gary think on the same term. I just had my air conditioner fixed in my garage. My garage is my favorite room, but most people aren't like us, Gary. We're special.
Okay.
I like garages.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what's news. So we get back to the reason we're here, which of course is answering the questions you send us. And we got one in that Gary, in fact, sent in. He's from Maryland, and he's wants to know
Gary.
if you've ever run across this situation, Tom. He says, my house at the head of a cul-de-sac, and 120 volts comes from one side of the street, and the other 120 volts comes from the other side. So if the power goes out in one part of the neighborhood and not the entire neighborhood, only half our house loses power. How is that possible?
I have never heard of such a thing.
Ever.
I'm sorry. I haven't. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does with Gary. I have never heard of such a thing. The only thing that I could think of is if it's and in Maryland it could be a very old neighborhood. In the old neighborhoods, they used to run 3-phase. So you had 3 phases running, and maybe somebody messed it up and split. And when they went to a single phase, which is actually 2, they call it single phase. They ended up running the 2 legs from different areas, but it's so unusual. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, he says that the house, Tom, was built back in 1972. If
That's
has
not
anything.
old. That shouldn't be that, because I'm talking in the 50s and 40s
Yeah,
when they started
right.
bringing electricity
Yep.
popular.
What did they call that old wiring where they had the fabric wrapped and it went from one insulator to
I
another?
like that. Okay, it's called knob and tube.
Knob and tube. That's
Okay,
it. Right.
and the reason they had knob and tube is because you had the neutral and the power line, and they had to be 6 feet apart. I'm stretching my arms out. 6 feet apart, because the only way they
Hang on
could
a second, let me
protect
go to the
people
one
from
shot.
touching.
No,
There
still
you
can't
go.
even get it in the one shot. Okay.
No, but it's that way you couldn't touch both and get electrocuted. So that was how they had safety rules back then.
Unless you're really tall. So what they were really doing
Or you
was
stretch out from
this
feet
was
to hand.
This obviously was some sort of sinister government plot to get rid of really tall people.
Well, that could be. Thomas Edison and Tesla came up with the alternating current and blew him away from the direct.
And George Westinghouse.
Well, he
Right.
was the banker part, but Tesla worked for him and came up with that alternating current.
Yeah,
I
Well,
didn't
thought
know that
Edison
until I
was
saw
DC.
that the other day. And Tesla's, that's why we called Tesla the car. What?
Yeah, but Edison was DC.
He was DC. He wanted
Yeah.
it, but doesn't have the power.
Right.
And so Westinghouse wanted to compete, didn't know what to do. Tesla worked for him, gave him this idea. Westinghouse kind of started to market it. And then, or maybe Tesla took off. I forgot. They got in a big argument about something.
Right.
But Tesla's the brain who was the helper, who everybody kept poo-pooing. You know what it was? Tesla worked for Edison and then went to Westinghouse to market his idea. That's what it
Yeah,
was. It's all coming
Westinghouse was
back
the
now.
one that made the money because he convinced them to go alternating current.
That's right. Yes.
In fact, I was a couple weeks ago in Tiffin, Ohio. And fun fact, Tiffin, Ohio is one of the first cities that Edison wired for lights.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so I didn't
Yeah,
know
and
that.
the first generator that they both fought over was Niagara Falls, to create enough power to light parts of cities. So that was like the big contract they both fought about, and it was all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's an interesting story how it all developed.
Gary says that he doesn't have knob and tube. Of course,
No,
you
I know
don't.
that, Gary.
But he says
1972.
It's a single meter and a single panel. This is really a curiosity.
Yeah, I
How
don't know.
Half of his house would go out and half wouldn't. All right, Gary.
No, I understand how he's on two different
Yeah.
circuit with the power coming in, but I would call here we
Yeah.
have center point, but whoever your provider is, and say, hey, just give me a background on the story. I would just be curious.
Well, the official answer from Home Show Radio is beats the hell out of us.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay. But hey, if your power's on, you know what, Charlie, think about it. We talk about generators. In fact, mine came on today. We had a little lightning storm on my house here, and you'd have to have two generators or two switches. They would have to switch from both different circuits coming in.
Yeah.
It would be a mess.
Yeah, Gary, I tell you what, I don't know where exactly that is, but it's probably
It's close to Washington D.C. It's Maryland.
Maryland. Yeah, I don't know anybody in that area I can point him to either. So
No,
all right.
that one I don't.
If you could just move down to Wilmington, I've got somebody down there who could help you out.
But it's a cool question, Gary.
It is, Gary,
I
it
actually
is-
will
it-
ask
it is a
people I know
stumper.
until somebody gives me an answer.
Right. All right. Austin has written into us, Tom. He wants to know, how do you insulate old lath and plaster walls? I remember these. We had these in my house in New Hampshire when I was a kid.
Yeah, but you would insulate them like anything the same way. A lath and plaster wall, if it's already up, if you're tearing it down and going to build a new one, that's a different story. But you would just put fiberglass in the cavities. You could have it loose filled and just packed in if you wanted to. You could use some of the spray foams. I'm not sure where he is, but with lath and plaster walls, I'm sure it's not in the deep south. It's probably up in older parts of the country in the northeast. So I'm not sure where the question comes from, but maybe it is down here. But as far as that goes, you insulate it the same way. But one of the things, when you take a really old home, you can't make it super energy efficient. So don't try, because it's just not going to work. You cause more problems with other things. So with an old home has its own character, its own wonderful place to live. I have had owned very old homes before.
Tom,
so
he says,
I would
by
tell
the
you
way-
to enjoy it.
Just so you know, he says that he's in Southern California.
Well, it's to say it's.
I'm wondering
there's some
where
old
they
areas
have
down
that.
there.
That is an old piece of construction for Southern California.
Well, it's probably in the 50s and stuff. And California is. I lived in an old home in Santa Maria, California. It was lath and plaster walls,
That
and it was
chapter of
built
your
in
life
the
I've never
30s.
heard. Okay. That's a
Yeah,
chapter
it's
of
some
your
of my
life.
life we don't talk about much. It was California in the 70s.
True.
But and I
That's
was
before
very
the
young.
prison years. I understand.
But this house was built in the 30s. It had the old alleys in the back. It had the mage quarters,
Yeah.
they used to call it.
He
It was a
just
very
wrote
old
in and
home.
said
So they
it's,
have them in California.
he
They
just
had the
wrote
gold
in,
rush.
Tom, to say that it was a 1920s bungalow.
There you go. This was a bungalow I was in. So
Yeah.
they do have them. Remember, we had the gold rush in 1849, if I'm correct. So people were in California before they were in Utah, Nevada, and everywhere else. They all went to California, not only from the East Coast, but they came over from Asia and everything else. It got populated pretty quickly, pretty early.
Well,
Sacramento, or excuse me, San Francisco being a good example.
Well, and as they say in Oregon, most people went west on the Oregon Trail, right?
Yep.
And when they came across, there was a fork on the Oregon Trail that took you down to gold country. And what they did is they painted a rock gold with an
I've heard
arrow
that
on
story.
it pointing that way,
Yeah.
right? And a little further up, there's a sign that said Oregon with an arrow pointing the other way. And so what people in Oregon understand is that people who came west for gold went to California, and people who could read went to Oregon.
Nice. Well, I'm not going down that road because I have family in both.
All right,
And my
fair
wife's
enough.
from California. She can
All
read.
right. And just a little roll call for you here as we move along. You're welcome, Austin, by the way. He just wrote in to say thank you to us. I wish we
bet.
could help you more, buddy. Annie is joined us. Michael has joined us. Charla, Jay, Jojo. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you back with us again. Gary, of course, Michael, Rusty, Haas, and a bunch of questions. Oh, that's all Gary's questions right there. Charlie and Zach is watching across all. Zach, get back to work. All right.
Hey, Rusty, how you doing?
Good to have all y'all with us.
Heard
here
your
today.
name. Yep.
Let's get to some of the questions we got from our mailbox here at homeshowradio.com. Or if you want to send one of those in, by the way, you can go to homeshowradio.com, fill out the Ask Tom form, send it in. Or since we're here live, put them in the comments section. We'll help you out. First question we have from there, though, Tom, is comes from Michael in Taylor Lake Village. He says, I've used the same air conditioning company for more than 20 years, and they installed my unit that I have now about 11 years ago. And they say it has a freon leak in the coil of the outside unit. And they quoted me $2,800 to replace it. Is this a smart thing to do, Tom, on a unit of this age?
Yeah, if you want to keep it. I did. I mean, I can't tell you what's smart and what's not, but if you have a really well-installed unit and you don't want to, if you go and change out the entire system, you're looking at a lot more money. And I mean that sincerely. If your system is all working really well and you want to just change the condensing unit outside, I think I paid $3,500 to have mine replaced. And my unit's 22 years old. And because the furnace I have is a 25-year non-prorated warranty, it still has 2 years left on it. I'm not going to pull all that equipment out. The fact of the matter is in some cases, if you don't have the money and you need the system running, and a condensing coil cannot be fixed. That's exactly what happened to mine. Once a condensing coil leaks, the condenser needs to be replaced. And when it comes time, if you have some inside pieces that need to be replaced, you can match them up and replace those later. And that way you don't have the full expense. So is it the only way to go? No. Is it a good way for a lot of people that don't want to go into either debt with a lot of loan on an air conditioning system, which is hard, or just want to keep it running, or maybe even the house is going up for sale in 3 years and you don't want to put that big investment in. So there's a lot of different reasons to choose one or the other, but either way it should work.
All right, fair enough. Got a question came in from Robert in Central Florida. He says that he's going north, staying up there for 3 or 4 months. He wants to know, what does he do with his water heater while he's gone, Tom?
Just leave it on and leave it alone. Turn the water off to the house. You're in Florida, so don't worry about draining the pipes, and you're not going to be gone, it sounds like, in the winter anyway, but that wouldn't be an issue. Turn the water in case anything breaks in the house, even your water heater. It's not going to pump just hundreds of gallons and thousands of gallons of water through the house. Some water will get discharged, and it'll be fine. When you get back, just have some cleanup to do. But I don't want you to turn the whole thing off because it's going to get rancid and nasty in there, and you're going to use such a little bit of electricity just to keep the water the same temperature. You're not going to be using any. It's going to be fine. It doesn't evaporate away. A lot of people think that. It doesn't boil over. It just stays hot in there, but hot enough to keep the bacteria killed. You're going to find very little on that. And with your air conditioning system, I would tell you to leave it at 82 or 85, somewhere in there. don't let the house overheat. You come back to cracked molding, cracks in the sheetrock, your furniture, kitchen cabinets will have cracks in the doors. If it overheats one time, you get a hot spell coming through. So keep it acclimated too. I can't stress this enough, and I've owned more than one home at one time where I had a house on the beach or a house up in Lake Placid, a house in Houston. You have to keep them running. You have to keep them acclimated. It doesn't use a lot of electricity. You can't just shut it down and leave. When you do that, you can come back to some real problems because a house, even though you're not there, it has to stay acclimated and things need to be used. It would be nice even if you could have someone come in and flush the toilets once in a while. That's your biggest thing, is the P-traps are gonna evaporate, and your bowl in your toilet's gonna evaporate. And you know what'll happen then? You get sewer gases in the house. So just even having someone come in once or twice a month, flush the toilets, run the water a minute, turn it back off, and leave. That's why people have caretakers for homes that they have as second homes. But at least leave the water heater alone. Just turn the pressure off to the house, and keep your air conditioning system set up in those lower 80s.
It's a gas unit, by the way. He came back.
That's fine.
So even better.
That's fine. Yeah, I actually
we're
it is.
Power outage. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Another one for us here comes from Sam. He's over here in the energy corridor. That's part of Houston where I'm sitting. He says, I need to replace my hot water heater. Same topic. And was wondering if going tankless is a good idea. What are the pros and cons of doing that, Tom?
Today, if you're building a new home, most of the people are going tankless. I know in my career, when I quit building about 5 years ago or so, everything we had done for 20 years was tankless for the new construction. To retrofit an older home, it can be rather pricey. You have to run in new gas lines that are bigger. You have venting issues you have to deal with, locations of where they are, electrical hookup in some cases, depending what kind of water heater you're getting, just to run the electronics in the water heater. So you have some issues that you have to bring several trades in to take care of. With today's tanked water heaters, and you'll find a lot of common sense plumbers will tell you this, it's just easier and less expensive, and they're super efficient, the tanked water heaters today. They keep improving them, that you just put in and replace the tank, and your initial cost is going to be much less. Now, what I would tell you people is this, if they're going to take it a step further and say, well, Tom, there's sometimes I have 12 people in my home, and we just run out of hot water. There's a way to get around that. You can put a tanked water heater in for when you don't have all those people there and you have plenty of hot water, and then put a booster heater on the outside, on the water coming out of the water heater. I have one at my house when we have a lot of guests or the kids come home, and that way it's like a post heat and a preheat. And as it goes through the preheat, it goes through the post heat. You constantly have all the hot water you want. But when the kids aren't there, your guests aren't there, it doesn't turn on at all. And then you can go to just an electrical unit where you don't have gas lines and you don't have a venting issue, and you can just run some electrical power to it and combine those, say, with a gas tank, and you can have the best of both worlds. So it really has a lot to do with lifestyle, but in most cases on a retrofit, it's very expensive and not worth it.
Here's one for you, Tom. CJ just wrote in to ask us. He says, how would turning the water off while on vacation affect my water softener?
Your water softener you can shut down. If you have a water softener that, there's a couple ways to do it. The easiest thing is put it on bypass and it won't come on. If you have a timer, just turn the timer off. Unplug it if you want. Just reset it when you come back. Just leave the water softener alone. It has nothing to do with the water heater. And if you have a Kinetico like I have, I would put it on bypass and it just wouldn't come on, or it probably wouldn't come on at all unless water is running because it measures itself. So water softener is something you just kind of ignore. If you have a timer, you don't want it to regenerate, I would tell you to just unplug the timer. Usually they have a little transformer plug like you have with your cell phones and stuff. Just unplug it, then it won't regenerate until you get back, plug it back in. You'll probably have to reset the timer on it, which should be pretty simple for most people besides myself who can't reset anything. So I have a hard time with that. I just bought a new motorcycle. I can't figure out how to use half of it yet.
Yeah, that's it. The nature of a
I
new
can
car.
drive it.
I've been driving my car 2 years. I still don't know what that little red light means on the overhead. Hey, thanks for joining us today. A little roll call here. Del Rena's with us. Gary, Craig, Patrick, CJ, of course, just talked to you about a question. Larry, Diana, and Rhonda. Thank you all for being here with us. We're answering questions. You can put them in the bottom or hear more of the ones we got from Home Show Radio, like this one from Don. He says, I've been told that a fresh air system on an AC unit will pull air from the outside, and this is being done to bring in air to a tightly sealed house. My question, would that not also bring in hot air and make it harder to cool my home in the summertime, Tom?
This is my favorite question of the day already. And I'll tell you why. Every home, especially, I don't care how tight your home is, you don't live in an igloo cooler, made here right outside of Houston, by the way. You don't live in that. If you did, you would die in about 18, 20 hours because you would have no fresh air and you would have no oxygen left.
Always a picture of sunshine.
If you don't believe me, take a small puppy or something, put it in a jar, and you'll watch it die. Of course, you're not going to do that. What I'm saying is, think about your body is that way. If you know an animal has to have little holes in a cage, even a parakeet, think about you too. That's what I'm getting at. I didn't mean to be so morbid there, but it makes the picture come alive, or not. The fact of the matter is this. You are going to have infiltration. How about this idea? You can bring infiltration through a fireplace, through a draft hood on your dryer, through your kitchen exhaust. It's going to pull air in. And the reason it is because no ductwork on an air conditioning system is 100% sealed. It doesn't happen. Whether you lose 10%, which would be a really good system, or some systems can lose up to 30, 40% when they pressurize up and these little tiny leaks happen throughout, it's common, it's going to happen. That air has to be replaced. So the house starts to suck in other air to replace it so it balances it out. And it's going to suck it through the walls, through the light switches. You got the picture. It comes in unfiltered, which means it's dirty. And it comes in either hot or cold if it's the winter time. It doesn't matter winter or summer. But how about this? How about we allow the air conditioner, give it a little lung, a little breather tube, and let it just pull in that 10% or whatever, just what it needs to balance it. But yet it comes through a filter, then it goes through the conditioning, whether you're cooling it or heating it, and then it ends up into the house with the rest of the air that's circulating. Much more efficient and much healthier. And a healthy room needs about 5 air exchanges an hour. Now, you get a lot of that just by going in and out of doors and things of that nature, but you cannot live in a sealed environment. You will die. And just picture the little pet or whatever you want to picture. You don't want to do that to your family. You don't want to do it to your pets. You don't want to do it to yourself. The only thing you can do that with is a fish because you put them in water. You can't do it, and that means you too. You'll get sick. Or some people just live kind of sick. They have allergies, they have this, they have that. When they wake up in the morning, it's because they're not getting fresh air returns. So I know Charlie hates me to say this, I highly recommend it.
As opposed to partially recommend or lowly
Or
recommend.
yes, or maybe a little.
Yeah. It's
I don't work in Washington, so that's okay.
I feel the same way about that as I do hot water heater, or fried shrimp scampi. It's like, come on.
Or shrimps. I want a whole bowl of shrimps.
All right. Hey, we only got a couple minutes. Let's see if we can get a couple more questions in here
go
real
ahead.
quick. John in Boise says, I have an old dish satellite up on my roof. I want it removed, and I'm planning on replacing my roof. I just removed a 60-foot birch tree, which was damaging my roof. Do roofing companies remove old satellite dishes, Tom? I would think they would.
Yes, and I can relate to this. In my life, I had a beach house. When I got the beach house, somebody had lived there before, and there was a satellite dish. Oh, it was my stepfather that actually rented it from me for a while, and he put a satellite dish on there. And when they left, I wasn't there most of the year, and I'd come in, and people would keep breaking in. And I couldn't figure out why. And one day, I took the dish off of the house. I called the company. They said, I don't want it. And I would suggest you call the company in case they want to come get it from you. But they won't. And then I threw it away. After the dish came off the house, I was never broken into again. So there's some other residual things that might happen to you too. That's a true story, I'm telling you. I couldn't believe it. Will the roofers take it off? Absolutely, and that's the time to do it. Have them pull anything off you don't need, and then put a nice clean roof on there. But call the company in case, we want our equipment back. We'll tell them it's in the garage, come get it.
Right. Yeah, you want to go to the city dump. It was about 2 weeks ago. You may want to dig down a little. It'll be right there.
Yeah, no. But usually they'll say, no, we don't care. They told me, we don't care. It was there for 4 years. Nobody cared.
Exactly. All right, last question comes from Beth. I think you may want me to take a run of this. Is there a streaming service your shows played on? I used to be able to listen.
The answer is yes with Charlie. Yes. Take
I want to play your program on my Alexa because we no longer use radios. That was the amazing part of this question. They don't use radios, so she was hoping she could help us bring her to the light here on how to catch the show, and it's easy peasy lemon squeezy for you, Beth. All you got to do is go to homeshowradio.com, and then cleverly concealed in the lower right-hand corner,
But can she do that with Alexis?
AskTom button. What's
Can
that?
she do that with Alexis?
I have no idea. I don't have any of those devices in my house.
Okay, that was her question. Can she do it with her Alexis?
I only want my Nest thermostats and my phones listening to me. I don't want another device.
That's true. There are other people out there.
No, we don't have
curious.
any of those speakers that listen to you and stuff. I don't have those in my house. But I don't know if it's possible. I think the way to do that would be to go to the Odyssey app, and go that way. But then you got to listen to Sports Radio 610 as Not Just Tom. Not that there's anything wrong with Sports Radio 610. But if you're after Tom, yeah, they're good people. But if you want to listen to Tom, the easiest way is to go to homeshowradio.com and click the listen button, or subscribe to our podcast, because the podcast is Tom's show sans commercials. So that's another way to go.
Okay.
I've yet to figure out why we do that.
You can come program my motorcycle now, too.
What is the revenue model in giving away the show for free with no commercials? I'm still the geniuses across the hall haven't explained that one to me yet. So.
Well, and that goes all the way back to day one when I was in radio 30 years ago, and they said, let's put it on the internet. And then somebody figured out, hey, we're not making any money and people are not happy. And then they took it down for a while. And they still haven't figured it out.
And you know who figured out how to make money with that?
I don't know.
Mark Cuban. And he sold
I believe that.
That's
He's
how he got rich.
guy.
He had broadcast.com, and he sold it and made $1 billion. And
really?
Bought the Mavericks and went on Shark Tank.
He seems like a good guy. He's up the road from us here in Dallas.
Yes, he is. So, all right. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Of course, you want more Tom. You got an itching for more Tom. You're in luck, because he's on the radio every weekend.
Yes, I am. Visit me. However, I know Alexis can't be part of the party, apparently. But you can visit us at homeshowradio.com and listen, or, of course, just listen to Sports Radio 610, Saturdays from 9 to 12 and Sundays from 8 to 11. And, of course, homeshowradio.com, as Charlie has mentioned. Hit the Listen Now button, and don't forget Danny on Saturdays from 7 to 9 with all your gardening information. And if you haven't listened to him, give him a half an hour, and I think you'll like him. He's sharp. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he has a rotating panel of local home garden centers, family-owned garden centers who grow things here, that work here and all that. So it's a great place to go for some great gardening advice on Saturday morning. And before we go, I got one last thing to share with you, Tom. From the Department of This Could Leave a Mark comes this genius who's sitting on top of this thing with a welding torch in order to bend it down and bring it down. You got to admit, this is this something you would teach in your class?
Charlie, it's actually kind of doing that kind of thing is standard. I run one of I think the finest welding program in the country with the AWS. And yeah, that's not as uncommon as what you just saw. We've even done it with cars. Wow. Whereas we're heating it, we're driving the car on the metal and forming it to do things.
Okay, well, yet another reason why.
Strange deal, but it's scary to people who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, that I won't be doing that for a living. So, among other things, I don't like to work around open flame. Number two, I don't want to use that part to do that.
Actually, that plate's bending quite nicely. He's doing quite a good job. I was watching that.
There you go.
I thought you said you were going to have something that was going to be scary. I said, no, that's pretty much what we do in welding sometimes.
All right. Well, we will come back and do this. We'll be back again 4 o'clock Central next week to do this all over again. Hope to see you.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show Radio. Home Show Radio. Free advice from a pro who